we got to talk about reversing Hashimoto's disease and hypothyroidism, actually. I'm leading with Hashimoto's disease, but also going to dive into hypothyroidism. One is not necessarily the other, right? One can lead to the other, one often looks like the other. But they're kind of two different things in certain ways, right? So I want to talk about the differences there. I've had a lot of success with helping women to reverse Hashimoto's disease and hypothyroidism. Now, when I say reverse successfully, I mean the shrinking of nodules or the complete removal, the dissolution of nodules, any potential nodules that are there, right? Either fully or partially to any significant degree, right? I'm talking about these symptoms disappearing, no longer having the joint pain, the fatigue, the anxiety, the restlessness, the gas, the bloating, the excess weight gain, all that kind of stuff, right? The hair loss, these types of things. And I've learned a lot because I've had years of experience with this issue, so I kind of know what works and what doesn't. And I wanted to talk about that tonight. Hashimoto's disease is an autoimmune disorder, right? Or autoimmune disease. The primary cause is chronic stress or chronic oxidative stress. This is often a result of a variety of different things. This can be childhood traumas, abusive relationships, poor diet, drinking, smoking, excessive exercise, or lack thereof, right? But stress, things that generally aren't conducive to human health, as well as lack of outdoor time, lack of direct sun exposure, leading to a vitamin D deficiency. Okay. One thing that's very common, aside from the stress, because everybody who's come to me with Hashimoto's disease or hypothyroidism to one degree or another has dealt with a lot of stress. We're talking years of very consistent stress. It's a stressful lifestyle. In and out of toxic relationships, bad relationships with family members, self-esteem issues, really poor sleep quality, some degree of a toxic lifestyle, diet, etc., right? The diet is also very high in saturated fat oftentimes. The cholesterol is high, the blood pressure is high, blood sugar is high. There's some degree of fatty liver disease a lot of the times. It's a lot going on, right? Kidney disease to varying degrees. There's a lot going on there. And it's one of those things where as you carry on these harmful lifestyle habits and circumstances, you accumulate all of these negative things. And there's very specific things that we can do, right? There's specific lifestyle choices, diet choices, and things like that, supplementation, herbal teas, etc., that we can deploy to reverse these issues. Right? If you do them for long enough, you get compounding results to the point where you fully reverse the issue. Okay? So I've been able to figure out what works almost 100% of the time. Okay? The most difficult thing for me helping to get someone to a full reversal are medications that conflict with the goal. A lot of the times you do have to sacrifice whatever medications you're on because the medications can actually block you from your progress. Okay? And there can be certain types of supplements that can also block you from your progress. Okay. A great example is metformin, beta blockers, right? Things like this can block you from your progress. Statins, steroids, right? Whether it be like hydrocortisone or something like this. What else? Blood pressure medications, right? That's another thing. These things can cause you to be more insulin resistant over time. Diuretics, right? A lot of people who are trying to lose weight or dealing with edema, so swellings. It's common with people with Hashimoto's, and they take a diuretic to relieve some of the swelling. It makes the issue worse because it contributes to dehydration, which runs up your blood pressure, your blood sugar, causes bad headaches, etc., right? And can make you insulin resistant on top of that. So these things make it more difficult to see any significant progress. So going as medication-free as possible is first up. Medications are a hedge against your lifestyle. If you change your lifestyle, then that pretty much removes the need for the medications because you've implemented things in your lifestyle that replace the medication. So if my food is lowering my blood pressure, why do I need to take a blood pressure medication? If my diet is improving my blood sugar and making me more insulin sensitive, why do I need to take metformin? Right? If my diet does not come with significant sources of saturated fat, high levels of saturated fat in my diet, well, then I don't really need to take the cholesterol medications, right? Because I don't have that dietary fat contributing to the increase in accumulation of cholesterol, right? The LDL, LDLC cholesterol, etc., right? So this is what I'm talking about. And then, of course, if you have a diet with an abundance of antioxidants, carotenoids, polyphenols, etc., that protect your cells and reduce the oxidative stress and allow you to breathe easier by increasing hydration and oxygen absorption in your lungs, well, this can remove the need for any medications that you could be taking for anxiety and depression, right? So the list goes on, right? And I'm going to get into all of that. So let's start with diet. Actually, no, before I talk about diet, we got to understand what issues we're trying to deal with here. There's a lot of different issues that stem from the Hashimoto's. Dry skin, flakiness, dry scalp, hair loss, massive hair loss, right? Poor sleep quality, restlessness at night, the inability to go to sleep because the cortisol is really high at night, right? Excess weight gain, where it feels like you eat anything and your weight just go up, all right? You cut out the carbohydrates in your diet because you eat like a potato or some rice or something like that, your stomach swell up, you balloon up, and it feels horrible. You're like, damn, I feel like I just swallowed a brick, and I feel like a balloon. I feel fat and gross. This is extremely uncomfortable. I don't like it, right? So all of these digestive issues, right? These are things or signs. Joint pain, elbows, knees, ankles, hands, feet, just joint pain. Lower back a lot of the time is the issue, knees. And usually, most of the time, joint issues are metabolic disorder, right? Joint pain is a metabolic issue. It's not a result of the exercise, right? It is the metabolic processes of the cells that make up the connective tissue, and the oxidative stress is wearing out those cells. So those cells are dying off at an accelerated rate, faster than they're being turned over and regenerated. So you have cells that die off, and then you have new cells that come and take their place. But if your cells are dying off faster than new ones are taking their place, well, then this is where the pain comes from, and you feel the diminishment of those connective tissues that make up the joints. Right? So that's what the pain actually is. It doesn't come from exercising too much or anything like that. Exercising too much can make it worse, but not exercising also makes it worse because the problem isn't necessarily exercise. You have to improve the metabolic conditions that's currently going on in your body. So, number one, when it comes to nutrition, the best approach I've found is either a fully raw vegan diet or a high raw vegan diet. And the number one thing that I talk about all the time is eating water-rich foods, right? Hydrating foods. This is going to be your fruits. This is going to be your pineapples, mangoes, watermelon, cantaloupe, honeydew, your grapes, cherries, berries, kiwis, right? Apples, grapefruits, pomelos, oranges, whatever the case is, right? Your citrus fruits. And then you got your leafy greens in conjunction with that, specifically your tender leafy greens, because they're the more cruciferous ones, your cabbage and broccoli and things like that. The sulfur content and the protein content, specifically the sulfur content, can be high enough where you can be experiencing bloating and gas from it. Maybe a bit too much on your stomach, make you gassy, right? The starch make you gassy, right? It could be a little too much fiber, right? And that can cause some bloating and gassiness. So the tender leafy greens are a better shot. So the easy to digest stuff, right? It's like the fruits that I just named. Your fruits and your leafy greens. You can make smoothies and put things like hemp seeds and flax seeds. Hemp seeds and flax seeds are really good. That's where you get your protein. That's where you get omega-3 essential fatty acids, omega-6 essential fatty acids, things like that. And those things largely help with your hair. Okay. The hemp seeds, the flax seeds, the chia seeds, these things are rich sources of magnesium, iron, copper, right? Those omega-3 essential fatty acids, prebiotic fiber, zinc, all those things that are needed to maintain healthy hair, skin, and nails, right? So, having a smoothie with, let's say, mango blueberry or mango pineapple, and you put hemp seeds in there, right, for example. Great combination. And in addition to that, you add some leafy greens to it, some spring mix spinach or something like that to it. That can have really positive results in reducing any potential blood sugar spike from it. I wouldn't be too worried about the blood sugar spikes because when you consume a significant amount of fruit, your blood sugar rises quickly, but it comes down quickly. In my experience with diabetics, one really good strategy for maintaining blood sugar is starting eating earlier in the morning. So you start eating earlier in the morning with that fruit, and your blood sugar numbers actually come down much quicker than if you were to not eat at all. Because a lot of the times what happens when people are insulin resistant, like for example, if you have Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism or you're diabetic, right? You can wake up first thing in the morning and your blood sugar is like 180, 210, 230, 260, crazy numbers. You haven't even eaten anything yet. And you can skip breakfast and your blood sugar is still real high. It takes forever to come down. Your blood sugar can be at like 180 by like noon. And you're like, I didn't even eat anything. My blood sugar's just been perpetually elevated. I didn't even eat anything. Okay? Whereas you can start eating much earlier in the day. I'm talking like within the hour of you waking up. And you start eating and you have a significant amount of fruit. Right? That could be 4 to 6 bananas. That could be 48 to 52 ounces of watermelon, or 36 to 48 ounces of cantaloupe, or whatever the case is. And you take your time eating that, and your blood sugar will actually come down quicker, and you'll have much better blood sugar numbers than you would have if you didn't eat anything at all. It's counterintuitive, but I'm speaking from experience, and this is a consistent thing that I've seen over years. Right? Now, evenings, this is where you can have your avocado. This is where you can have your cashews, your pumpkin seed kernels, your sunflower seed kernels, your diced onion, bell pepper, mushrooms, an abundance of leafy greens, some more hemp seeds, things of that nature. Right? And that really helps to improve your sleep quality, right? Because those foods give you an abundance of magnesium and zinc together. Good amount of protein, your fats, tryptophan-rich foods, which is an amino acid. It's a precursor for good sleep quality, right? And then after that meal, you can then tag on an herbal tea. So you can do, let's say you do 1 gram of ginger, 1 gram of turmeric in 8 to 10 ounces or 8 to 12 ounces of tea, hot water for tea. You drink that down after your last meal. And that also helps with blood sugar, that helps with anxiety, that soothes your gut. There's all types of benefits that come from that. Another really good combination is 1 teaspoon of basil, for example, holy basil, and cilantro. You put that in a tea steeper and you drink that for tea. Right after your last meal. So this can be like the format of your day as far as how you structure your meals. Okay. Fasting can be very beneficial for people with Hashimoto's also. But it's one thing that I've learned is fasting works really well as long as you don't have a variety of mineral deficits and your bone marrow is not compromised, right? But the thing is that if you've been battling weight loss, let's say your hair's falling out, you've been battling weight loss so you barely eat, right? Everything bothers your stomach, everything's making you gain weight, you're working out, you're doing cardio, you're afraid to eat, you feel better when you fast, right? And then when you eat carbohydrates, you feel lethargic and sleepy, and all that type of stuff. You eat a sweet potato, which everybody tells you is a good food to eat, and you eat it, and then you get the itis and you want to go to sleep. You feel terrible, so there's like this fear of eating, right? So you just end up under eating chronically. And you can do this over a period of months and years. And so what happens is gradually over time, you're hemorrhaging vital resources, minerals, vitamins, chemical compounds that are stored inside your skeletal muscle tissue, vital organs, bone marrow, and you become depleted over time. And then the hair shedding and the skin issues get worse. And you become iron deficient. And as you have menstrual cycles and things like that, you become iron deficient, and this leads you into feeling worse. Now the issue is no longer Hashimoto's. That's one of the issues, but now it's manifest into even more things. Right? And so fasting can actually make it worse because you've already been depleted. So you'd have to eat your way out. So that's the thing a lot of the time. You can take a blood test to find out what you lack, but it doesn't really tell you the whole picture because on paper, in your blood, your levels may look fine, but in your bone marrow, they're not. Because resources will be pulled from your bone marrow and pulled from your skeletal muscle tissue to put into your bloodstream to maintain certain serum levels of that resource. So that manipulates the data that you see in the blood test work. A great example of this is magnesium. Magnesium is often not picked up in a blood test because you store most of your magnesium inside of your vital organs and your bone marrow. You don't really have significant amounts of it stored inside your blood. It's actually bad. If you have a lot of magnesium in your blood, it's usually a bad sign. Right? So, I see a question here. I remember somebody asking me this question. Hello, Remsen, do you include olives in your diet? I personally don't really eat olives. I mean, I don't have anything against them. Olives are a great food. Olives are a very rich source of antioxidants and have a variety of benefits on blood sugar, blood pressure, anti-aging, skin quality, hair growth, etc. Right? So yeah, definitely. If you like eating olives, put them in a salad and whatnot. They're great. Yeah, for sure. All right. D says 75 to 90% of raw, unprocessed ingredients. I guess talking about like a high raw diet, which is my lane. Yeah, absolutely. So that's the case as far as nutrition is concerned. If we dive a bit deeper, because a lot of it is about regulating blood sugar and things like that, right? So you have glycemic index and glycemic load. I'm talking about fruit. People say, oh, what about the sugar, right? Your brain primarily runs on sugar, right? That lack of sugar it contributes to the fatigue. Right? So when you feel fatigued, your emotional wellness, your mental health is just deteriorating. You're exhausted all the time. You don't sleep well. That's a lack of glycogen and oxygen going to your brain. When you cut your carbs, you also drive yourself deeper into dehydration, which can cause you to have dry mouth, right? And it's a terrible feeling being bloated and gassy with a dry mouth. Because then you drink more water and then you feel like you're adding to the balloon in your stomach. But the bloating up of your stomach, that's a result of acid buildup in your stomach. So you need more alkaline forming elements in your body coming in through your diet. And then that relieves the gas and the bloating, right? You settle down your stomach. Also, a great remedy for the gas and bloating is peppermint tea. Peppermint tea is a very good tea to add in. It's really good for settling your digestive tract, really calming things down. So basically, when it comes to your fruits, you have fruits that are moderate on the glycemic index. They're not necessarily low. They're like in between 60 and 70. Anything that is 55 and below on the glycemic index is considered to be low glycemic food. And then like when you start getting into like 60, 70, 80, that's more moderate. Anything like above 80 is like high, right? Most fruits are like a 70 and below, okay? Now, the interesting thing with fruit is fruits that are high on the glycemic index tend to be low in the glycemic load. They have a low glycemic load. So, for example, watermelon can be like even 80 on the glycemic index. Could be. Depends on how ripe it is. But it's low on the glycemic load. So you have to eat a lot of it in order to really accumulate like that glycemic effect. But it's a very hydrating food, so it offsets any negatives from the blood sugar because it's a hydrating food. So the hydration, the electrolytes and all of that you get from the watermelon actually contributes to bringing your blood sugar down and giving you better numbers on the back end. Then you have your foods that are low on the glycemic index, period, right? Your kiwis, cherries, berries, right? Apples, for example. I'm a very big fan in particular of kiwis, cherries, and berries. Big fan of these things. Kiwis in particular are a very rich source of vitamin C. Grapefruit, very rich source of vitamin C. That vitamin C is actually very important for thyroid and adrenal health. Okay? Increasing vitamin C intake, the more you increase your vitamin C intake, the better your adrenal glands and your thyroid function. Right? Vitamin C is like one of the main ingredients to reversing fatty liver disease, kidney disease, thyroid, and adrenal fatigue. Okay. So more vitamin C rich foods in your diet will just give you better outcomes, period. right? And the longer you do it, the better it gets. Kiwis are also a very rich source of B vitamins, and the B vitamins are extremely important. Hashimoto's primarily is a result of chronic systemic fatigue. So your nervous system has a certain bandwidth, okay? So think of it as like a temperature scale. Up at the top, it's red, blood red. Then it goes from orange, lighter orange, lighter orange, yellow, yellow, lime green, 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 darker green, right? So when you engage in anything that's stressful or any kind of activity, you come out of the green, and then the more you sustain that stress, you get more into the yellow and then the orange, and it just keeps stepping up, all right? When you're redlining, that's where you really start getting those Hashimoto's and hypothyroid issues. That's when you start really getting those high blood pressure and insulin resistance issues. It's when you're redlining your nervous system. And basically you get an accumulation of systemic fatigue in your nervous system. And your adrenal glands have to really respond to this in order to manage that stress. Right? So your body will release norepinephrine, adrenaline, cortisol, right? All of these different hormones in order to manage your stress level. But your body can only produce but so much of this at a time, so you will get burned out. Now, in women, a lot of the times what happens is you can actually drive yourself into early menopause by just blowing out your progesterone. So your estrogen increases the longer you sustain the stress, but your progesterone decreases. So you may have experienced this point where you start missing your menstrual cycle, right? Or your menstrual cycle becomes a lot shorter. Right? So it becomes a lot shorter and a lot more frequent, or you could just miss it altogether, right? Because, like things like fasting, really intense exercise, strict dieting, under eating, stressful lifestyle, those progesterone levels get crushed, right? Being on birth control even makes it worse, right? Birth control contributes to these hormonal imbalances as well, right? So like birth control can actually increase the estrogen, which ramps up the weight gain, because this increase in estrogen disproportionately to progesterone can cause you to gain unwanted excess body fat, right? And then the chronic cortisol keep your blood sugar really elevated. And if you're insulin resistant, you're not really getting the glucose from your food, and your body really starts getting into this catabolic state, breaking down protein and fat for energy. And you get like this feedback loop, right? Where you're getting a lot of energy even when you're not eating. That's why fasting may feel good, but you're getting it because you're losing muscle and you're dropping body fat at the same time, kinda. But you're losing lean mass faster. And this is where, if you have Hashimoto's, you would experience muscular fatigue very frequently, where the muscles always feel fatigued. And that's that muscle loss that can really ramp up as a result of that issue, right? It's a hormonal thing. You can't calorie cut your way out of it, like a lot of people try to do. You can't fix a hormonal imbalance with a calorie deficit and more exercise. It doesn't work. So the problem when people say, like, oh, it's just a matter of calories in, calories out, it's actually not true, right? For the reasons I just explained. So the B vitamins. Your B vitamins, B1 through 9 and B12, they work collectively to protect and rejuvenate and maintain healthy function of your nervous system. Right? Your B vitamins are needed to repair and sustain your nerves, right? Your neurotransmitters, your motor neurons, your entire nervous system, right? Your whole electrical circuit board, your brain and everything like that. B vitamins are absolutely essential for this. Fruit's a very rich source of B vitamins. So when you're eating all the bananas and the cantaloupe and the watermelon and the grapes and the grapefruit and all this type of stuff, you get an accumulation of B vitamins. You also get an accumulation of electrolytes. You get magnesium and potassium as the primary ones, right? And then your leafy greens, you get some calcium as well. And then plant-based fortified milks will also give you additional calcium. You don't need a lot of calcium, right? But essentially what happens is you accumulate these alkalizing resources along with the B vitamins and the vitamin C, and this helps to regenerate and rejuvenate your nervous system. And what happens is as you do that, this resets your hormones back gradually. So with the increase in hydration, electrolytes, B vitamins, vitamin C, in part, those things cause your progesterone to get rebalanced to come back up. If you're on birth control, that may interfere with that, just to give you a heads up. Birth control can really destroy your hormonal balance. But with those foods, you can then bring that progesterone back up and level out with the estrogen. And the estrogen to progesterone ratio is very important for other things that I'm going to explain involving your thyroid. So having a carbohydrate dominant diet, water rich diet, fiber rich diet, loaded with B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, potassium, manganese, copper, vitamin K, all these types of things, right? With your grapes and berries, etc. It's very important to eat the rainbow, eat all the colors. So you want to get your greens, your yellows, your oranges, your purples, deep reds. You want to get all those colors in your diet, right? So throughout the week, you're rotating these colored foods: green apples, dark red grapes, green kiwis, dark red cherries and strawberries, blueberries, especially the red and blue fruits is very important because that deep red and blue pigmentation, you get your polyphenols from that. You get your retinol and your resveratrol from that. These different types of antioxidants, these chemical compounds that literally help to retain your eye color, your hair color, your skin color, and balance out your melanin so that you have an even distribution of your pigmentation. This helps to protect your DNA, right? So you get your retinol, your resveratrol, your retinal, you get your beta carotene, alpha carotene, right? These different carotenoids and all of these things. Color is very important, right? Because of what that color implicates. That's why it's very important to get all those colors in. Right? So your orange foods like your cantaloupe and grapefruit, your pomelos and things like that, really important. Your green foods, which are detoxing, right? They're like astringents. The orange foods, the yellow foods, and the green ones, right? They have like this, like green apples have like an astringent effect. Pineapples, right? They're detoxing. Okay. Cucumber. Celery juice, it's another one, right? Having this astringent effects, detoxing your body, which is very important because you need to remove acid and waste products built up inside your body. And so when you eat more of those green foods, right? Peppers, bell pepper, cucumber, celery, green apples, kiwis, right? Pineapple. These things help to pull toxins and waste products out of your cells and push water and vital nutrients inside your cells. It forces a trade. So you swap beneficial nutrients out for waste products. It's a two-way trade. This is why you have to eat your way out, by the way, because the only way you make that trade is you have to eat in order to make the trade. So your cells, they push out the waste products and suck in the beneficial nutrients. But if you're not eating, where do you get the beneficial nutrients from? There's nothing on the other side of the trade. right? So this is the vital role of food and why you have to eat your way out. This is why I'm a big fan of eating more, where you gradually build up and you eat more and more and more over time. So let's say you start with 3 meals and then you move to 4 and then you move to 5. You go from eating 32 ounces of a food to eating 40 ounces to then eating 48 ounces to then 52 ounces. Right? You go from 1 grapefruit to 2 grapefruit. You go from 8 ounces of pineapple to 12 to 16 ounces, right? You accumulate. You go from 2 bananas to 3 bananas to 4. I've had people, some of you in the chat can attest to this, where you're like, man, I started off eating 2 bananas. I'm up to 4 now, and I feel great, right? Their appetite increases as they feel better, and their blood sugar numbers reflect that. Because the more they eat, the better their blood sugar numbers get. This is what I'm seeing. It's very counterintuitive, right? And they send me the screenshots, and they tell me, they're like, I'm eating more food, and my blood sugar numbers are actually better than when I was eating less. So, moving on to supplementation, because not everything you can get from food, because not all nutrients necessarily come from food as a primary source. Take vitamin D, for example. I have never had someone with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism come to me with these issues and not be deficient in vitamin A. One 100% vitamin A deficient. I mean, not vitamin A, I'm sorry, vitamin D. Vitamin D deficiency, right? 100% every time. All right. By the way, if you're having the dry skin and the issues, the hair and nails breaking and all of that type of stuff, vitamin A is specifically important for that. So getting more of those orange and yellow foods is very important. So your mangoes, your grapefruit, these are really important things. And then your berries also, like blueberries and blackberries. Also really important, you need the carotenoids as the substrate for the vitamin A synthesis. Okay. But vitamin D, so you definitely as a lifestyle habit need to get vitamin D in a variety of ways. Direct sun exposure, supplementation, and food sources. As far as your food sources, we got fortified plant-based milk, and we've got foods like mushrooms. These are your vitamin D sources, right? Vitamin D2. Then you can supplement with vitamin D3, right? So for example, you can do 5,000 IUs of vitamin D on a daily basis with your first meal for the next 12 weeks. You get anywhere from at least 30 minutes to an hour of direct sunlight on a daily basis. And you have vitamin D rich foods in your diet on a daily basis. So you deploy all 3 of these things, okay, to really take care of your vitamin D issue. The next thing, because vitamin D doesn't really work in a vacuum on its own. There's something that needs to be paired with it. A lot of people think that that's vitamin K. So people say, oh, I take vitamin D3 and vitamin K2 together. What's interesting is vitamin K2 deficiency is nowhere near as common as vitamin D deficiency. But what is way more common than vitamin K deficiency is magnesium deficiency. Vitamin K deficiency is most prevalent in elderly people and children, like babies. Yeah? If you're vitamin K deficient, it's a gut health issue because vitamin K2 is a postbiotic. It's made inside your gut. If you're eating a fully raw or high raw diet, you get way more dietary vitamin K than anybody you know. The people who get the most amount of dietary vitamin K are either raw vegan or high raw vegan, right? Raw vegan to one degree or another. Okay. Your leafy greens loaded with vitamin K. All your fruits loaded with vitamin K. Your nuts and seeds, vitamin K. Okay. So magnesium is the thing you should actually pair the vitamin D supplementation with. One thing that I like to do, especially if you have gut health issues, let's say you have intestinal damage, which a lot of the times, if you're dealing with Hashimoto's or hypothyroidism, you have gas and bloating and things, you have these gut health issues. One thing that works very well is you can make a drink, like a homemade lemonade. You can do 12, 16 ounces of water with 2 grams of magnesium malate, unflavored. Right? And then you put in like 2, 3 tablespoons of lemon or lime juice. Okay? To deal with the cortisol and the anxiety issues, 2 grams of taurine. Taurine is an amino acid. It's really good for your brain chemistry, blood pressure, reversing fatty liver disease, reversing calcification of arteries, atherosclerosis, etc. Right? Taurine is a medicinal amino acid. So you got the magnesium malate, right? 2 grams. You got the taurine, 2 grams. You got the lemon or lime juice, which is alkalizing. Okay, it's phenomenal at drinking your water. It'll wake your brain up for sure. And then you put in a drop of liquid stevia, just for a bit of a sweet taste to make it a bit more palatable. If you want, you don't have to, but if you want. Another thing that you can do, which if you've been vegan for a while, this would be really beneficial for you, but you add 5 grams of magnesium, 5 grams of creatine monohydrate. Creatine monohydrate is a phenomenal supplement, not just for skeletal muscle retention and growth, but also for your brain chemistry. Okay, creatine helps with the metabolic processes of energy production inside your cells. Okay, so inside your cells, your mitochondria will then use glycogen, stored glycogen, and convert that into ATP, adenosine triphosphate, as a form of energy inside your cells. Creatine optimizes that process of energy production. And in intracellular energy production, optimization is the name of the game when you're dealing with these issues. So creatine would definitely help with that. Right? The creatine would help to reduce the catabolism inside your vital organs and your skeletal muscle mass in particular, as well as improve energy production in your brain, which translates into improving your hormonal profile. Especially when it comes to things like your pituitary gland, which I'm going to get into when I start talking about the thyroid issues. So that's the supplementation that you can put inside that drink. That drink is a big deal. You do that on a daily basis. It's definitely worth it. All right? Other types of supplementation, and you don't need a lot of supplementation, but in particular, what we have to understand is the B vitamins that we need. You don't get massive dosages of those B vitamins from food. You get small amounts that you accumulate over time from food. If you want to speed up the healing process, you can supplement with B complex. The B complex that you get ideally should be a B complex that's rich in B1, right? Vitamin B1, known as thiamine. That thiamine should be either 3.5 to 5 grams of vitamin B1. Milligrams, not grams, milligrams, right? So 3.5 milligrams to 5 grams of thiamine, right? That's the effective dosage according to the research. A B complex that is rich in a dosage like that of thiamine will more than likely have the best source of B12, which is methylcobalamin. And that percentage is going to be real high, right? It can be like 2,000% of your RDI. So it's real high. You may say, 2,000%. I mean, that's a bit excessive, but it's water soluble, right? So in the short term, we're talking like over an 8 or 12 week period, it makes a real difference in nervous system recovery. It's not a thing that you have to do every day of your life or so, right? You run it for 8 to 12 weeks and then reassess where you are after that, right? But the supplements, whenever I suggest supplements, it's specifically geared towards the issue you're dealing with. This is why I don't really talk about multivitamins. It's because you run into a dosage issue. A lot of B complexes are underdosed in almost, well, as far as multivitamins, all the multivitamins that I've seen, they're all underdosed. All of them. They're all underdosed. Because if you're going to fit every single vitamin inside like 1 or 2 capsules or pills, tablets, or whatever the case is, you're not going to have adequate doses of everything. They're going to be in small doses. Number one, you want to make it cost effective and you want to get everything. In order to have significant dosages, you're going to be taking like 9, 10 pills or something like that. And if you don't want to swallow a bunch of horse pills, chances are you're not going to do that. Like back in the day, I used to take this multivitamin called Animal Packs. And it was a packet of pills. It's the most ridiculous thing I've ever done in my life. And I hated them damn pills. They taste nasty. They're these giant pills, right? I don't have a hard time necessarily swallowing pills. I just don't like to do it. But if you're somebody like my mom, where, you take a pill and you're one of those people, right? You take a pill, you jerk your head back, right? You drink some water, you do this stuff and jerk your head back. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all one of these people who do that. Okay. I'm kind of curious to see if that's just a thing my mom does or if that's how much of a common thing that is. Just snapping the head back. It'd make my neck hurt just seeing it. But in any case, that's why I don't really recommend multivitamins. You only supplement with the particular thing that you lack in order to fix your issue. Right, so targeted supplementation. Now, a lot of people with Hashimoto's disease, another one thing that you really deal with is feeling cold all the time or being anemic. Now, understand the thing that makes you anemic is not getting enough iron in your diet. It's not what it is. Iron is very susceptible to oxidation, which means that if you have high levels of chronic oxidative stress in your body, iron is getting oxidized inside your liver, contributing to damage of your liver. Right? This can drive down the ferritin levels in your liver and cause you to be, or to manifest or present as anemic. Supplementing with iron alone is not going to do that. Right? If you're going to supplement with iron, it should be food-based and it should be paired with vitamin C, copper, and B12, at least. Right? Because in order to synthesize adequate levels of hemoglobin, which is what iron is needed for, because your body temperature In order to sustain a comfortable body temperature, you need higher hemoglobin. You need more blood oxygen, because the oxygen is the substrate for thermogenesis on a cellular level, and that keeps you warm, right? So you need the oxygen. Less oxygen leads to feeling colder. More oxygen warms you up, speeds up fat metabolism, etc. Right? So copper, vitamin C, along with the iron, as well as the B12. You can supplement with B complex, and that it can actually improve your issue altogether. But when you bring down the oxidative stress, the iron issue goes away. I never really tell people to supplement with iron, unless it's a food-based supplement, like a Flora-Vital or something where it's food-based. Now I got to move into hypothyroidism, because you can have a hypothyroid disorder and not have Hashimoto's. Hashimoto's is basically an autoimmune disease where your body is producing excessive amounts of antibodies that then damage your thyroid, right? And so when you reduce the oxidative stress and you have an antioxidant-rich, water-rich diet, that brings down the antibodies. So more zinc, I should have mentioned zinc, but more zinc and more magnesium and more vitamin D reduces those antibodies, right? So before I move on, I got to go to the zinc thing. Before bed at night, a really good habit for you to take if you have Hashimoto's is to supplement with magnesium biglycinate. It's a different type of magnesium. The first magnesium I mentioned was magnesium malate, which is something that you would have during the day. Magnesium biglycinate is something that you would have at night before you go to bed. So you have the magnesium biglycinate in like a powdered form, 2 grams of it or 3 grams of it, combined with, let's say, 15 or 30 milligrams of zinc picolinate together. Not only do these two combined help to improve sleep quality and reduce anxiety, but they also help to correct the autoimmune disease and bring down the antibodies, those excess antibodies, right? So you don't get this explosive, excessive immune response. Okay. So vitamin D, vitamin C, magnesium, zinc, B vitamins, all of these things collectively work together to bring down the temperature. Less inflammation, less oxidative stress means less of an inflammatory response, less of an immune response. You gotta bring the temperature down. Okay. Now, with hypothyroidism, it's a bit of a different thing. Right? You can have Hashimoto's and hypothyroidism. You can have hypothyroidism and not have Hashimoto's. So then we get into your pituitary gland in relation to your thyroid, in relation to your adrenal glands, in relation to your liver, right, and your kidneys. All of these organs combined have these different hormonal effects that produce certain outcomes. So typically people with Hashimoto's will have high TSH, right, which is thyroid stimulating hormone that is released from the pituitary gland to signal to the thyroid to release more T4. T4 is an inactive thyroid hormone that in the liver is then converted into T3. T3 is used to stimulate the energy production process inside your cells. So when you have that low T3, you feel lethargic, you gain weight because of the intracellular energy production is lagging. That's what contributes to a lot of the fatigue and the hair loss and the joint pain, etc. But if your thyroid is damaged, there can be a low T4 output. So basically when there's a low T4 output, that translates into low T3. That doesn't always happen, but it can. So you have low T4, low T3, and then high TSH. So you can see this on your blood test. Okay. Then there's another thing, right? And you'll see on a blood test it'll be TBG, thyroxine binding globulin. Okay. This is important because you can have where your TSH is not excessively high and your T4 is not excessively high, but your T3 is low. If your T3 is low, chances are your TBG is high, that thyroxine binding globulin. Basically, this is where T3 or is bound up, right? Your thyroid hormone is bound up because of excess estrogen. So this thyroxine binding globulin is made inside your liver. And so what happens is it suppresses that thyroid hormone. And this is where the whole hypothyroidism comes from a lot of the times. So even when you have adequate levels of T4, but you have low levels of T3 and this high TBG, right? This typically, at least in my experience, this typically from what I've seen, this happens with people with fatty liver disease or liver disease of some extent or another. Right? Now, the saturated fat in your diet combined with the insulin resistance and the low progesterone and high estrogen leads to the increase in that TBG, right? So you get higher cholesterol, higher fat stored in your liver, more estrogen, and then more synthesis of this TBG, which suppresses thyroid hormone. A lot of times people have hypothyroidism and there's nothing wrong with their thyroid. So the problem is not in your thyroid, the problem is not in your pituitary gland. It's in your liver, right? A lot of times it's a dietary thing. So when you improve the insulin sensitivity, the vitamin C, the hydration, you increase your magnesium, what happens is as you bring down the level of stored fat sitting in your liver, that improves those TBG numbers. And it brings your progesterone up as you recover and reduce the inflammation in your body. Right? So that rebalances that whole thing. You got to fix the liver issue and improve the insulin sensitivity. The high estrogen, the thyroxine binding globulin, and all, your body's supposed to do that in order to get you to stop engaging in the stress that you're engaging with. Your body's trying to tell you to chill out. One of the mistakes, the biggest mistakes I see people make is women in particular. Let's say you're struggling to lose weight. And because you're struggling to lose weight, you do the opposite of everything that you're supposed to be doing. The opposite. So you're like, man, I want to lose weight. So I'm going to cut my food intake and I'm going to exercise more. So you start going to the gym and on a daily basis, you're doing an hour of cardio, right? And the cardio feels therapeutic because of the endorphins, etc. So you feel better mentally when you're doing the cardio. You get to sweat and all this type of stuff and it feels better. And the cardio helps you to bring down your blood sugar, and bringing down your blood sugar to a healthy level feels better as well. And then you get addicted to exercise because when you exercise, you feel better, and when you're not exercising, you feel worse. It's addicted, right? Specifically that aerobic cardio, right? This is why you'll have women trying to lose weight and they'll prefer the cardio over the weightlifting. Because with the weightlifting, it's very fatiguing. You'll rack up fatigue real quick doing intense resistance training, right? So the cardio is like a safer bet. It's more rhythmic. You can moderate the pace a bit. You don't accumulate the fatigue as quick. Problem is, you deplete your resources, you're under eating, and then the stress ramps up when you stop the cardio. So you can bring the stress down when you're doing the cardio, but then it comes back up real high when you stop. And it destroys your sleep quality when it's time to go to sleep. So you do the cardio and then you're up all night. Right? Because your adrenal glands are pumping hard. And then you feel like garbage in the morning when it's time to wake up. Rinse and repeat. So you wake up in the morning, you feel really fatigued, lethargic, your blood pressure, your blood sugar and your blood pressure is real high, but you feel exhausted. So what do? You get caffeinated, and then you go to the gym and you do the cardio, right? And you rinse and repeat, and you dig yourself into a deeper and deeper and deeper hole, right? You're managing long-term stress with short-term stress, and then the short-term stress basically turns into long-term stress. It's a feedback loop. All right. So in order to break the feedback loop, you'd have to approach it a different way. You'd have to do, let's say, instead of doing the running or the intense cardio, go for a walk. Go for a walk in direct sunlight, right? And when you get in that direct sunlight, like have them arms and torso, let that skin be exposed, right, to that direct sunlight. Get that vitamin D, right? So don't be out there with no sleeves on. Of course, in the winter time it's a bit different, right? That's where the supplementation really comes into play. Right now, when you got weather in the 70s, 60s, whatever the case is, you can get out there with no sleeves on. So going for a walk is a great way to manage your stress, because walking is not really that stressful. Not for most people. It depends. You got an injury, or you're 300 plus pounds. Well, walking 5-6 miles or something can be very difficult to do. So you may want to do 15, 20, 30-minute walks, right, at a slow pace. So when you do walk, you may want to keep your heart rate, or walk at a pace where your heart rate is like 100 to 105 beats per minute. Right? Where you cap out at like 110, 115. Okay? You can walk on a daily basis, and let's say you do resistance training for about 20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. Okay? So when you do the resistance training, you want it to be short and sweet and infrequent. You do the resistance training too frequently, trying to build muscle, because you're like, well, I heard building muscle burns fat, so I'm going to do resistance training more frequently in more volume to build more muscle. Doesn't really work that way, right? Because the thing is that you do the intense resistance training, you ramp up that systemic fatigue that can then cause your Hashimoto's to become worse, or cause the hypothyroid issue to become worse, because of that temperature thing, right? So stress management, okay? So the infrequent resistance training, 20 to 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, depending on the circumstances, and the daily walking. But recovery and stress management are at the top of the agenda with issues like this. You can't work your way out of a hormonal imbalance. You have to recover and rejuvenate your way out of it. Okay. Also, one thing that really helps is to set a strict bedtime. You go to bed at a certain time and you're up at a certain time. You will destroy your brain chemistry binge watching TV shows at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. All right? If you got on bright lights, you're in front of your phone screen or a computer screen, blasting your eyeballs with blue light, watching some dramatic television show that's all active and there's all type of stuff going on and it's ramping you up. You're gonna get to bed real late. This is how you end up being a perpetual night owl. And then mornings are terrible as a result. Right? So it becomes typical to only get like 4 hours of sleep a night, 3 hours of sleep a night. Right? So you gotta start dimming the lights about at least an hour and a half before bed. If you set your bedtime to 10 o'clock, start ramping down at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. Start ramping down, dim the lights, put on some soothing music, some sound therapy, like some water in the background, something like that, and just chill out. Stop taking phone calls, stop working, stop responding to emails or whatever you're doing, just chill. Get a comfortable weighted blanket, take some deep breaths, meditate, just chill out, turn the temperature down. All right. So I think I covered everything tonight that I wanted to talk about. I don't want to go too long. I said I was going to go till 9:30, anywhere from 9 o'clock to 9:30. So I'm somewhere in between that. So I'll leave it there. Finally, what I'll say is this is a complicated issue, right? You may need some additional help. And if you want to do that, there's a link that you can hit in the description of this video. You can book a call with me or sign up for personal coaching. Personal coaching, you get a diet plan and training plan and weekly calls. Right? So you have this ongoing support. So we get you on a 12-week diet plan, 12-week training, 12 weeks of coaching calls weekly. Book a call with me to start so we can talk over your issues specifically related to you. And if you want to move forward, sign up for some coaching. We get started on a 12-week journey. All right, so to get started with that, hit the link in the description of this video. Like, share, and subscribe. Appreciate everybody tuning in. And I'm going to tap in with the comments here. See if I answer some questions before we sign off here.